Hello, I'm Ezra Bookman. I'm Lab Shul's artistic director. That earlier today, we were talking about the other organizations. We're doing incredible COVID relief work that we're raising money for. Another thing that we're raising money for tonight is the Thriving Artist Fund, Lab Shul's Thriving Artist Fund, that is supporting work like that you just saw, which I think after curating for the last 50 days, some of the best art that's being made in the time of COVID. I really wanted to lift up that video of Joshua Gelb, my director from the High Holiday Storytelling with the Red Ribbons 2 years ago, who converted his spare closet in his tiny little East Village apartment into a little white box theater that he has been iterating on and generating these little videos that I think just truly capture the essence of what it means to be quarantined and how that obstacle can turn into an opportunity for creativity. So please donate. We get all the information for you on Venmo, on PayPal, on our website, and even by check, and help support this work in our community and beyond. I'm gonna turn it over to Amichai for some more artists.
So hey friends, this is Amichai in another spot in my room, in my house, and Ezra and I are sitting kind of 4 feet apart, to be perfectly honest, but we are doing this the best we can, and we are excited to be here from this Havdalah into this next amazing segment in which we are honoring the memory of one of our beloved partners and leaders and teachers and great artists, Helene Aylon, Zichronah Livracha, of blessed memory, was with us every year for the high holidays for many years and was such a beloved teacher for so many of us. Passed away just over a month ago out of COVID, and we held her memory in many ways. And tonight we're honoring her legacy by inviting 3 of our artists in residences of previous years and beloved artists in our community to create art in her memory. We're going to introduce the artists in a moment, and I want to start by introducing family member of mine and a dear friend, Sally Gottesman, who was a very dear friend of Helene's and did so much to make sure that Helene's art legacy is alive and well and will continue to do so. So Sally, over to you. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Amichai. It's really my pleasure to be able to share with all of you tonight 2 pieces of Helene's art. Helene really loved Lab Shul, right? She lived in New York City. There were many places she could go to Shul, but she really felt that Lab Shul and the folks involved in Lab Shul and who went to Lab Shul shared her mission to rescue Judaism and God and release Judaism and God from really thousands of years of patriarchal influence, right? And I think that was really, really important to her. So she would have loved the Havdalah that just happened, and she would love to see the art that was working, that's going to be made. She didn't like to travel the world alone. Like that's, I think Helene and I became friends. I said earlier to Jacqueline and Jessica, who you'll meet in a minute, that she and I were headed to the same North Star. I created organizations, she created artwork, but we really wanted to change the world in many, many similar ways. And I was really blessed to see her work and be stopped in my tracks by it and then be able to acquire some of her work. So I want to just share with all of you before you see the art that's going to be made. One is The Liberation of God. This is when Helene, she highlighted the 5 books of Moses, and as she said, they were Moses's books, not God's books, and she highlighted in places where she thought that, you know, this was not the Torah that God would have created, but the Torah that men and man would have created. And so she spent years working on this. She actually said that she could only start doing this when she was 60 years old. So those of you who have not started that kind of artwork yet, you still have time if you're not yet 60. And we were lucky she lived to be 89. And then the second piece actually that I just want to share with you and to really honor her memory and know that actually all of you and Amichai and Ezra and Jacqueline Day and Jessica are changing the world is actually one of the first pieces that I really, really loved of hers. And it's this notebook, and it's from a series that she did, My Notebooks. And I think that what Helene talked about was like, there weren't women's voices to study and learn. And So I'll read you what the notebook says and say that the work that's being done tonight and in the future, and that I think Helene was really the teacher of so many of us about, is changing that for the future generations. So I'm going to just hold this work up here and I'll read it to you if it's hard to read. I begin turning in my notebooks on the 54 chapters of the 5 books of Moses, searching for any notes I could have taken in my school days at the Shulamite School for Girls in Borough Park. Notes on the words of my foremothers and their daughters, as it's written, V'shinantam levanecha, and you shall teach this to your children. But in lesson after lesson on the 54 chapters, there was no woman's commentary for me to write down, no woman's principle for me to memorize. And I know that Helene would be grateful that she lived in this time where there are women's voices, and she's really one of the voices. So I want to, think how lucky we were that she was in our lives. I feel so incredibly grateful she was in my lives, and I really want to bless all those people who are going to create work that future women and men will learn and study from, and we're changing Jewish history, and as she would say, releasing Judaism and God from for the better.
Amen. Wow, Sally, thank you so much. I mean, I've been in that room and seen that art so many times, but to see you really read it and talk it and caress it is bringing Helene to this room. Really moving. So friends, thank you. We are going to share a prompt just based on what Sally was just saying from Helene's teachings and writings. We invited 3 of our friends, Jacqueline Nichols in London, Day Schildkret on the West Coast, and Jessica Tamar Deutsch in Brooklyn, 3 our beloved artists, to create art together with us over the next 20 plus hours. Big reveal in honor of Helene's legacy. I'm going to share a very short prompt, 1 sentence from Helene's writing from The Liberation of God. And she wrote God G-D, and the dash, she said, is the pink dash. It's where all the omissions, yeah, there's that pink dash on the cover. It's all the omission of women's voices and queer voices and other voices and all the misogynist patriarchal Bible that we need to rewrite in some ways as we're recreating now. So I'm going to read this 1.5 lines, and I'm going to invite those of you who are with us on screen in the room to maybe in the chat box, if you want, describe what's your reaction to this prompt. And then Jack, Jessica, Tamar, and Day are going to respond with Ezra about this, and then we're going to see what art you guys are going to create in the next 20 hours based on this and in her memory. So here's a quote. "You see," said Helene, "I have come to believe the 5 books of Moses are indeed the 5 books of Moses, not the 5 books of G, pink dash, D. When will G-D be rescued from ungodly projections in order to be G-D?" So it's a much longer quote about her being an eco-feminist artist who's been rescuing the earth and rescuing our liturgy and our Bible. And this legacy is profound. So we're going to leave you with this prompt. When will God be rescued from the ungodly projections in order to be God? I'm handing it over to Ezra to be in conversation, introduce our artists, and invite us all to deal and heal and lean into this art. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amichai, and thank you, Sally, and thank you, Helene, and her memory for bringing us this vision of a potential future. Please in the chat, please write your own responses and where that quote and where her teaching is landing for you and where it's landing in your heart and in your mind. We're gonna lead the way with 3 artists, the last 3 years of Lab Shul artists and residences coming together in this like one incredible virtual circle, literally spanning around the world to each go into their own very diverse and really unique artistic practices to respond to this idea with and through their art. And we're gonna get to hear a little bit, just like initial reactions of where this lands and how you might begin to process this through your art. So first, I'd love to hear from Jacqueline Nichols, who was our artist in residence 3 years ago. Jacqueline is a multidisciplinary artist, truly multidisciplinary. I've seen in just about 4 Instagram posts, like maybe 10 or 12 different mediums. She's based in London and is also an educator. One of her most incredible projects, just finished a couple months ago, is the Draw Yomi, where she drew the Talmud following the Daf Yomi schedule. She does all sorts of incredible ways of engaging with traditional ideas in very untraditional ways. So Jacqueline, where's this prompt landing for you?
Thank you, Ezra. That was really quite daunting introduction. This prompt, it's landing for me in different ways. I think, I mean, for me, Helene's work on about the liberation of God and the pink dash, and for her, she also expressed it in different mediums. She has an incredible light sculpture with like that pink neon dash. She has lots of things, and so I very much kind of hear her urgency in this kind of needing to liberate God. How long can I speak for? Because I could speak for ages about this, but I kind of feel that I'll just say it very briefly, but I could go into it longer depending on how much time we have. So I really feel this question of, this is the Torah of Moshe and it's not the Torah of God, is yes, this was the Torah that was given at a particular time and to a particular human, or was given in a human language. And what is the Torah of all of us? In like, what's the Torah of Amichai? What's the Torah of Ezra? What's the Torah of Jacqueline? Like, how does Torah going to now speak? What was the Torah of Helene? And maybe the Torah of God is all those Torahs combined, put together in all the different facets and all the different ways. And that Torah was given a human form. And it's like human language created God, trapped God, and maybe human language needs to liberate it in some way or go beyond language. I'm not sure. I'm going to waffle at that bit, so I'm not sure. So how much longer do I have to? I don't. Well, is this the intro? Is this audio? Or, yeah.
I know. Let's do a quick wrap around to everybody, and if we've got some more time, we'll get to come back. I know that you had another text that you wanted to share and bring in.
But I think it's going to go too far into one way, and I'm really interested to hear from the other artists. Actually,
yeah.
I'm kind of already in my head going in one direction, but I kind of want to be pushed off course. So that's.
I love that. I think we're all feeling very pushed off course right now. So
well, nobody's acting. Nobody's in their normal. So it's
Well, we're gonna move through the years and go to our 5779 artist in residence, Jessica Tamar Deutsch, based here in Brooklyn, a visual artist who also explores this pulse of ancient tradition within contemporary culture. I've been inspired by so many of Jessica's works. Her illustrated Pirkei Avot book is truly a masterpiece, and a very recent tiny little book called The Torah of My Kishkes is like opening up exactly what you were saying, Jessica. Like, what is this Torah? What is my Torah, and what do I have to bring to the world through art and through words? Jessica, I'm also particularly interested in the visual of the black G and the black D with the pink in between, since you work a lot with black and white and bring color and ask others to bring color into your work. Where's this landing for you?
Hey everyone. So I've actually been in Westchester the past few months, living with my parents right now. So yeah, I think in a very simple sort of way, just like Helen, she truly feels that the divine is alive. And while that might seem like such a simple, trivial thing, I think that most people connect the divine in a way that's frozen, and she believes truly that God is alive and therefore God can grow. And it's a dynamic relationship, and she truly gives herself agency to take part in that. And yeah, to say that like one can rescue God, like what a beautiful love. Like there's such care in that statement. And what I find also so admirable with, you know, her life's work in general is that she's really, in a very compassionate way, trying to work all these things out. And she truly believes in the spark and the energy and the love and the magic within her tradition. But it's so rare to hear someone to really truly believe it and emulate their belief that God is alive. So where this is landing for me in terms of my art, I think I just sort of need to run around my parents' backyard for a bit. I need to see some things that are growing. I need to remember that the world is alive and there's so much we don't know. So I think I just need to play a little bit.
I can't wait to see where that goes. When you say play, I get very excited. Like, the amount of different ideas that we cycled through when we were working together over the High Holy Days is really inspiring. So I am excited for these next 20 hours. I'm sure our next, moving through the years, our next artist in residence, who is still artist in residence through this year, although what is in residence is kind of weird these days. I'm sure you lit up when you heard about Jessica going and playing in the backyard and playing with the world which is alive. I know you've got a lot to say of that. Day Schildkret, known by most as Morning Altars, is truly known around the world and has inspired tens of thousands of people with his masterful, impermanent mandalas using the beauty that he finds in nature. And these impermanent earth altars, we filled the center of our ritual space over High Holy Days with a altar that evolved over the 24 hours of the High Holy Days. And so excited to dive into this again. Day's got an incredible book called Morning Altars, a 7-step practice to nourish your spirit through art and nature. You can engage with it there. You can also join him on his many at-home DIY workshops. So Day, where's this landing for you?
Thanks, Ezra. Good to see you and good to see everyone. And I'm zooming in right now from British Columbia on an island called Salt Spring Island, or in the Tsaut Nations language, it's called Wenanech. And it's pouring here, and the weather's been changing a lot. And so that's the thing that's come to mind right now is this understanding of change. And when you held up that the book, and I saw the G and the D and the pink dash in between, it made me, it gave me an inspiration to look at the space between. And to see the G and the D as very solid and very stagnant and very almost permanent structures. And that this dash, which I also grew up writing, you know, I wrote G-D growing up as well. And there's quite a mystery in that dash. There's a lot of respect, but it's almost like it's kind of our unique way of leaving a hole at the center of the word. And it's very mysterious, and I love that it's pink. Being a queer person, it's really touching me. So what's inspiring to me, especially with my art, is to play, of course, with impermanence and to contend with permanence, and especially in this storm right now, to go outside and to make something that may or may not last in the way that I wanted to till tomorrow. So you know, I made a little something last night and the deers already ate it all. So, so what I'd like to contend with is the understanding of permanence and the consequence that has upon things that are animate and alive and divine, and see if we can create a little bit more of an in-between or a little bit more of a dash in this moment in time. And so that the mystery, the unexpected, the unpredictable might have a way of cracking into this moment and through the art and give it voice again in our world. That's what I got.
May it be so. May it be so. We've got a couple minutes left, and I've got so much to say, but I really want to hear from you, Jessica, Jacqueline, Day, from what you heard from each other. What's coming up? What feels particularly potent, and what surprised you? What's interesting you? And you can just jump in. It's a small enough group.
Well, I thought it was so special to get to see, I mean, not exactly seeing Helene's work live, but I've only seen it on her website and in her book. So to really see them in kind of real time, at least, that is super inspiring. And just to see the different kinds of mediums and textures that she worked with, both simple and, you know, working in beautiful far off landscapes. There's such a range there, yet there's a common thread in everything. So that was super meaningful. Thank you so much, Sally, for sharing your home gallery.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. Jacqueline, anything rising up to the surface?
Couple of things, not quite full sentences though. It's really interesting that both Day and Jessica are talking about this change, the impermanence, the dynamic quality of that dash, and just thinking about, well, what, and I was just thinking about the title of Helene's book, her autobiography, of what is contained must be released, and just thinking about, well, what is going to be released in that dash, that dynamic, or that kind of dynamic energy that is contained within that dash, of so much has been contained or imposed on that dash. So I think that's kind of really the like, where my thoughts are going with that. Yeah, so did that make sense? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll also just jump in and say, it made sense to me. I'll also just jump in and say, yeah, I'm thinking of a book I read recently called The Alphabet versus the Goddess. And name, you know it. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
I can't hear you.
Say about it. So anyway, yeah.
What'd you say, Amichai?
It's my favorite book ever.
Okay, so there you go. Yeah. So, so I feel like, you know, because I primarily work with image, and it sounds like other artists here may work with words. And so I think there's also at play this contending between the feminine, the image, the all at once understanding, and the word, the patriarchal, the kind of sequential understanding of things. As you read, you understand, as opposed to if you look at an image, you get it all at once. And so I don't usually work with words in my art, but who knows? Maybe there'll be some of that at play.
I think one of the interesting things Helene once did was she created 2 tablets. It looked the image that we know of the 2 tablets, but had no words, right? I think right after Shavuot, that was really an interesting piece of work she did. What was one of her early pieces of work.
Cool.
Right.
Wow. Friends, this has been amazing to hear all of us get all artsy and inspired. I really feel like I'm almost hearing Helene's voice. you know, her soft, like dreamy, trippy, very focused voice, just like totally here in the room. Thank you so much for taking this wacky challenge on. I want to let you all know that tomorrow, New York time at 1:45 p.m., whatever time it is on British Columbia and in London, the old British, we're going to check in on you and see how you're doing. No pressure. We're just curious to see work in progress. And then tomorrow at 6:30 p.m., as we wrap up our 24-hour Reveal-A-Thon, we're going to invite you all back and see what you got. Hopefully work in process or created works. And then we're going to figure out how are we going to auction these pieces? Are we going to create the liberation of G-D legacy continued? We don't know, but we'd love to. Thank you so much, Sally. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jessica, Tamar. Thank you, Day. And bravo, Ezra. I'm going to start crying again for the 5th time tonight. This is so moving. And we're going to move on to our next segment of the night. Thank you. Go create beautiful art in the name of spirit. Thank you so much, friends. Beautiful, beautiful night.